right. Excellent. Well, I just wanted to gonna get started here. Gonna give it a few more minutes or seconds for notifications to go out. So it's been a few weeks since I've done a video here live. I am trying to get myself to schedule myself and to be determined to do these weekly. So bear with me as we move through and I improve my ratio of actually being weekly. Saying that, of course, next week I will not be having a show as I am taking a week off just to sort of sit back and recharge. It's been a long 6 months, nice and hectic, which is great. Love it. Love working with the clients that I've been working with, as well as the agents that I've been working with in order to get through the year so far. So I'll be taking a week off next week, so we'll be coming back the week after. So that would be June 26th, I believe it is the following Tuesday. So trying to come up with some topics for that. So today's topic is going sort of the next stage of a video that I did, or one of the broadcasts that I did when I first started this live broadcasting that I'm trying to do. And it's sort of the next step. So you've put in an offer, now what? What are the next stages or steps that happen within the immediate time frame after putting in an offer? Yeah, the market is changing a little bit now. There's, as you've been hearing, there are lots of new inventory out there. So with that, the ability to do different things has come up. So first off, just sort of getting into some of the things when it comes to the offers themselves. Obviously, it depends on what it is that you're purchasing. We have a number of different agreements of purchase and sale that we use in real estate here in Ontario. There's straight up for a residential freehold. There's one for a residential condominium. There's a different form for a residential co-op. There's a different form for property on tied land. So these are the freehold townhouses or freehold properties with condominium road fees. So that's a different type of or a different form that we use. Excuse me. And that's because there's different preset clauses that are set up in these agreements and things that you as a purchaser need to be aware of. So it's you want to make sure that you're reading through these before you get to the point of actually putting in the offer itself. But saying that, you've put in an offer, you may or may not have been in competition. If you were or you weren't, it doesn't matter. The next step, actually immediately after having your offer, if it's been accepted, actually take a step back for 1 second. You're putting in the offer. What happens on that? So what happens is once you've signed an offer, your agent will what's called register that offer with the listing agent. So registering it means that you have signed an offer and you're now waiting for the offer to be presented to the seller. Ideally, we would love to be able to present in person, and that's where your agent, your buyer's agent, goes and sits with the listing agent and the seller, and your offer is presented to the seller in person. The reason why we like to do these in person as much as possible is, of course, it gives us a chance to meet the seller and to have a face-to-face conversation with them, as well as the listing agent, and be able to promote you as the buyer and the positives and why, in some cases, why it is that you want to buy their house, what you love about their house, but also gives us an opportunity to potentially ask questions of the seller as well, which we can use back when you're having a conversation with you as a buyer on what potentially might help in a negotiation process. So then you get through and your offer is accepted immediately or within 24 hours, depending on the wording of the agreement. You have to have your deposit ready. So there's different ways to have the deposit. It can obviously be by personal check if it's a longer closing time, meaning more than 30 days. We can generally use a personal check, although some brokerages are getting a little bit more sticky on that and now requiring either bank draft or certified checks. And that's just because it's a little bit more secure. It's less of a hassle. They don't have to risk as much of the personal checks being returned as NSF or for whatever other reasons. It actually also helps you later in the stage as well. If there's the unfortunate instance where we have to go through a mutual release, It's faster for you to get your deposit back from the brokerage as well, because they don't have to wait the 30 days for the check to truly clear. Even though it shows it's cleared from your account, there's still a hold on the check, and thus the return of your money. So a certified check or a bank draft is preferred. And of course, in today's technology, we're also able to do, or in some cases, again, depending on the brokerage, direct deposits through electronic funds transfer. So that's the first thing, and usually tied in with that is ID. Your buyer agent is going to need pieces of ID from you. There's now a 4, possibly 5-page client ID form that we are required to fill in. This is part of the anti-money laundering policies as well as the anti-terror policies as well. So we have to find out, are you making this transaction for personal use or on behalf of a third party, as well as saying, are you a resident, a Canadian resident, and were you present in the purchase as well, or in the offer presentation and that sort of things. There's different levels within there, and of course that's the government requiring us to make sure that you're who you say you are and it's being purchased legitimately. At this point, and now again that we are not necessarily doing as many competitive offer situations, but again, even in a competitive offer, if you happen to have any conditions in your agreement, over the next X number of days, again dependent on your offer, we have to get these inspections taken care of. So depending on the conditions, there's usually if you have the home inspection, of course. You have financing condition, potentially if it's rural property, on water quality, as well as potentially water pressures, and there's enough to satisfy your household, septic inspections, those sorts of things. And these are all laid out within your agreement or within your offer on how many days we have to get these done. The first thing that ends up happening generally is all the documents that has now been signed. So that's the agreement of purchase and sale, as well as a copy of the MLS listing, needs to be sent immediately to your lender, so that they can get on and doing what they need to finalize your approval of the purchase, and as well as scheduling the different inspections. Some people have different ideas on, do we schedule the inspections near the end of the condition time frame, so that we can make sure that the approval has happened on the financing side of things, because you don't necessarily want to start spending $400, $500, $600 depending on the inspector and inspections, which of course can get higher if you have multiple inspections, before you know you can actually purchase the property. For the most part, though, we're hoping, and we've asked you if you've been pre-approved. So the confidence in the financing side of things is usually fairly high. So starting to schedule the inspections right away is generally a good idea, and it's for a couple of reasons. The first thing is what if something is the matter? What if something comes up? You schedule your inspection and there is an issue. You need to have time in order to decide if it's something that you're willing to accept. B, is it something that that you will not accept, and absolutely no matter what you will not move forward with it, or if the seller has the ability to remedy the situation. And sometimes those take additional inspections to find out. Say there's potential of asbestos in the attic. Well, an inspector can say there's evidence of, but to be truly sure, those things need to be sent out for further testing. So that could take a little bit longer time frame. So you want to know that as soon as possible, so that you can make the adjustments that are required right away and get going off of it. So getting into sort of that next sort of step, as you've done through the the inspections, if something comes up in one of the inspections, be it a septic, be it a water, or be it a home inspection, if it is something that you are absolutely 100% not willing to move forward on, and if the condition has been worded in the sense that it is the buyer's sole and absolute discretion, the mutual release is the first next form that would be used in that case. Unfortunately, this would be sort of the worst case scenario for everybody involved, being the buyer as well as the seller, is getting out of the deal because one of the conditions were not met. This one is signed by a number of different people. It's signed by both the buyers. It has to be accepted by a seller, and then also has to be signed and accepted by both broker of records of both brokerages in order for the funds to be released back to the buyer. This is one that obviously we don't sort of ever really want to use, but does come times when it's needed to use. The one that is preferred, of course, is a notice of fulfillment. So this means that you've gone through your different conditions. If there was a water quality sample, the sample was sent up to the ministry in time with enough days to cover that as well. So that's something that gets done pretty much right after your agreement has been accepted. I actually just had to run one up to Hamilton Mountain yesterday, and we should have the results by Wednesday afternoon, which is a day prior to the conditions having to be met on Thursday. So that kind of timing all works out perfect there. So if everything works out well and you're happy and everything's good with everything, the notice of fulfillment of the conditions is another form, or the first form that is used to remove conditions from your agreement and to transfer it or move it forward to what's called a firm or pending transaction. This one here just basically is filled in what the conditions are that have been fulfilled, and then the buyer sign it, date it, and then we send it to the listing agent to acknowledge receipt of it. If it is a different brokerage representing the seller, then the agent can sign on behalf of the seller, acknowledging receipt of this. But if it is multiple representation, which means that it is the same brokerage representing both sides, then the seller themselves have to acknowledge receiving this within the time frame that is stated within the condition. Which means that if the conditions are due today at 5 o'clock, if they sign it today at 8 o'clock, technically the condition, they were not aware of the condition being met, and there could be further discussions required at that point. The other one that some people get confused with on using for removing conditions is a waiver. The waiver is completely different from a notice of fulfillment. They have the same effect where they're removing a condition from the agreement and making it a firm purchase, but the manner in doing so are different. A waiver would basically be telling the seller that you as a buyer are now comfortable with everything, but you did not do them, which means that, say for financing, you waive your financing. By waiving your financing, you are saying that you're good, you're going to close, no big deal, even though you have not necessarily received approval from any lender, meaning that you have enough money where you can just buy the property that you've just offered on, and there's no concerns that way. Or you're not willing, you don't need to spend the money to do an inspection, and you're willing to take the house as is. The risks with these, of course, is then if something comes up, you now as a buyer have waived those conditions as opposed to fulfilling them, and it almost it reduces the liability on the seller. So you don't necessarily want to be doing these. If you put them in the agreement, put the conditions in the agreement, make sure that you do your conditions and use a notice of fulfillment for that. So those are kind of a quick things. Oh, what's the other one? Oh, the other one that could potentially be used, and I didn't grab it here, sorry, is an amendment. An amendment can be used if something comes up in one of the inspections and it's an issue that you want to have a seller fix, and the seller agrees to have it taken care of. The amendment would be used to remove the condition and add in an agreement where the seller is taking care of the issues or issue, depending on what it is and the severity of it. And it has a similar effect as it removes the condition that you're talking about specifically there. And in those cases, you only want to remove the condition that it pertains to. So if it was a condition of mold in the attic, and they agreed to do a mold remediation for it, then you would remove your condition of inspection and insert a clause with the seller taking care of the remediation prior to closing, and if not done, then a credit done to the buyer. So that's what's used in those cases. At this point, the next sort of things that were required, the different lawyers that are going to be being used in the transaction. If you have a very quick closing, then you definitely want to know who your lawyer is going to be quickly, because they need to get the documents and need to start doing what they need to do on their end. It's not just as simple as receiving money from a lender or from a buyer's lawyer, and the transaction's done. They do have to do a number of searches and title searches and registering title, et cetera, things like that. So this is all sort of really done within a week of, generally a week after acceptance of your offer. And then once that's all sort of set, now you get to sit back, relax, and try to remember what it is you just bought, because it was just a whirlwind of activity. Things were moving. If you have another house to sell, you will have been preparing your house for sale as well, if you were waiting to list until after you found something. So you're going to need to start getting all that done too, and the next stage of fun and frantic activity happens. So there is a whole bunch of steps, and it generally happens quite quickly after your offer is accepted. It's an exciting time. There's lots happening, and at this point, you get to wait for your 2 revisits, or however many revisits you've put into your agreement, so you can go back and take a look and measure and start preparing for the move. If you have any further questions about what the process is like and you want to just talk a little bit more in depth, please feel free to contact me. My number's at the bottom of the screen there. Or, of course, if you're thinking about making a move, we're more than happy to sit down and go through the different processes with you, both on the listing side as well as buying side. Feel free to give us a call at any time. Hope you have a great day and enjoy the heat. It's finally here. Happy summer, everybody, and we'll talk to you in 2 weeks.